everybody. There was a huge payoff in this new episode of Game of Thrones. I screamed so loud that I am sure to have a sore throat tomorrow. It was that wow of a moment. I will get to that in just a minute, but first, let's talk about episode 6 of season 6, Blood of My Blood. At the beginning of the episode, we see Mira dragging Bran along. It picks up right where episode 5 ended, and she is a complete mess. She really is. I feel so horrible for her. She's having to cope with Hodor's death and the fact that she alone now has to care for Bran, and she is pretty sure she is going to fail because very quickly, the Whites catch up with them. It happens pretty instantaneously. And one thing I want to point out, it was another moment that made me scream in this episode. I was freaking out. It was amazing. Bran has a vision of the Mad King, and this is the first time we have ever seen a vision of him. It was brilliant and mixed in with a lot of other visions. So what I think is going to happen by the end of the season is, in the jumble of visions and information he is still constantly going through, he's going to find out about Jon and his parentage. That's what I think, and I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen. I could be wrong, but it seems like the most logical thing to happen, so fingers crossed. Now, a little while after Bran sees these visions, Mira is finally able to get him to snap out of it and come to the present, and she apologizes to him, and then Bran announces that they have arrived. And a bunch of Whites arrive, and I am just freaking out at this point, and then I am like, wait a minute. I see someone coming to the rescue. At this point, I'm just like, who is this? Who is this? I need to know. I need to know. I am sure it's Cold Hands, but who is Cold Hands? And is it who we have all thought it is? Please be who we think it is. He, of course, saves them, and then we're just left waiting and hoping that there's going to be some payoff and that we're going to find out who he is by the end of the episode. Now, let's move on to Hornhill and what is going down with Sam and Gilly over there. A lot goes down, and it is amazing. I loved all of these scenes. We see them get cleaned up, and we see Gilly in a dress. And she looks very nice, very nice. And Sam is pushing the lie to his mother, father, and sister that Gilly's son, little Sam, is his son, and that she is just from the north and not a wildling. And yeah, things seem like they're gonna go okay for a while, but yeah, we know that's not the case. Things are gonna be royally messed up very soon, and they get very messed up by Gilly, because at dinner, Sam is just being laid into by his father, and Gilly wants to stand up for him and tells his father that Sam killed a Thin and she saw it happen. And when she does this, she basically lets slip that she's a wildling, because the only way she would have seen this is by being a wildling. And his father loses it at this point. I love that they focused a lot on Sam in this episode and his background, because I've always felt this was very important to the storyline, especially since he's going to become a maester for the Night's Watch, and because he's a Tarly and he's been shunned by his father. It's pretty big. I mean, I loved his mother and sister. They were great, but his father was a complete ass, just like Sam said, and I wanted to kick him in the ass. Oh, but you know what? It's all good, because his father announced that Sam is now banished from Hornhill, that Gilly and the child can stay, but Sam can never come back. Well, I'm like, okay, wait. What's going on? What's gonna happen? What's Sam gonna do? Well, at first it seems like he's gonna go along with it and just leave. He walks out the door after saying goodbye to Gilly and little Sam, but then he comes back, gets Gilly and little Sam, and steals his father's sword, Heartsbane. Holy crap. He took his father's sword. But you know what? Sam has better use for it, because it's Valyrian steel, and once he goes back up north, yeah, he needs that. He needs that more than his asshole father. Now, let's move on over to King's Landing and all the craziness that went on over there in this episode, because what the hell? Seriously, what the hell? Tommen has a meeting with the High Sparrow, and after speaking with him, he is granted permission to visit Marjorie, and they have this very interesting conversation that left me a little confused, but basically It seems like they've both been won over by the High Sparrow, and at this point, I don't know what they're gonna do, but it's not good. It's not good. And Marjorie plans to make the Walk of Atonement. Well, when the time comes and she's about to make this walk, Jaime and Lord Tyrell show up with an army in tow and plan to take down the High Sparrow and the Sept. And I'm like, okay, things are about to really go down. But they don't. They don't. Because at the moment when they're about to start fighting, Tommen walks out and announces that he has aligned the crown with the faith and that there's going to be no battle today. And at this moment, I loved all of the expressions on everyone's faces because they were just as shocked as I was. It was crazy. It was crazy. I mean, no. Olenna was just kind of shaking her head like, yeah, we've been outwitted and we're screwed. It was bad. It was very bad. Now, they didn't show Loras being released or anything, and I don't know what's going on with that, but one thing that we did get to see after that was that Jaime is released from his role as commander of the Kingsguard and is going to be sent to the Riverlands to help Walder Frey regain Riverrun. What? Yeah, this is just... Oh, Tommen. Tommen, you're gonna get dead very soon. He's gonna be dead very soon. I wonder who's gonna die first, Ramsay or Tommen? Let me know in the comments who you think is gonna die first. So, speaking of the Riverlands, let's talk about that just a little bit. We see a scene where Walder Frey finds out that Riverrun has been retaken by the Blackfish, and he is pissed. He is really pissed. But then he, of course, has something up his sleeve. He still has Lord Edmure Tully and has been holding him prisoner all this time, ever since the Red Wedding. Okay, so let's jump across the Narrow Sea real quick and talk about what's going on with Arya and Braavos. When we first see Arya in this episode, we see her attending that play once again and watching the Lady Grain, who she is supposed to kill for the many-faced god. And you can see her, like, leaning both ways. She doesn't know what she's gonna decide to do, but one thing that I really loved about this scene was that we got to see Arya watch a reenactment of Joffrey's death, and she cracked up laughing. And all of the audience were looking at her like, what is her deal? Why does she find such joy in this? Well, if only all of you knew. If only all of you knew. Now, before the play is even finished, Arya runs backstage, and as she's about to pour the poison in Lady Grain's rum, she has a moment where she debates not doing it. She ends up pouring it in anyways and walks off. And we think, okay, so she has succeeded in her task. But then she runs into Lady Grain, and she comes to really like her and decides to save her life. As Lady Grain is about to drink the poison, Arya shoves it out of her hand and it shatters on the ground, and then she points at the girl that has been playing Sansa and tells her to watch out for that one. And as Arya walks off is when that was when I was just like, okay, yes, this is the moment we have all been waiting for, because the waif was there monitoring the entire thing, and now she has been granted her wish by Jaqen to kill Arya. We are going to get a huge showdown between Arya and the waif. And one thing that I really loved right after this scene was that we saw Arya retrieve Needle. I mean, we knew. When Arya refused to get rid of Needle and just buried the sword under a bunch of rocks, we knew this was coming, and I cannot wait to see this showdown. After she retrieves Needle, she goes off into a cave. She sits down, holding Needle, and waits. And we know who she's waiting for. She's waiting for that waif and to stick her with the pointy end. Alright, so let's talk about the two best scenes in this episode and the huge payoff that we received. Now, first off, let's go north of the wall and talk about Cold Hands. It is revealed Cold Hands is Uncle Benjen. Yes, finally. This was the scene where I screamed so loud that I'm pretty sure I will have a sore throat. I am so excited about this payoff that Uncle Benjen is alive. Now, where has he been since season 1? Well, he was stabbed in the gut by a White Walker and then saved by the Children of the Forest by them shoving dragonglass in his heart. And yeah, so he didn't become a White Walker, and he's been north of the wall all this time killing White Walkers. So when he meets Bran though, what I really enjoyed about this scene was that he wasn't just addressing Bran as his nephew. He was addressing him as the new three-eyed raven. And that was a really important moment, I feel, because the three-eyed raven was this one character. That's what we believed all this time. But apparently someone else can become the three-eyed raven, and Bran is now the new three-eyed raven. I am very interested to see how this relationship progresses, how Uncle Benjen has changed as a person after all he's been through. I am so excited for this, especially because it's another Stark reunion. We have gotten not just one, but 2 Stark reunions this season. Things are getting real. Oh, they are getting real. All right, now let's talk about the final and other best scene in this episode. It is a scene between Daenerys and Dario. We see her speaking of her plans to go and retake Westeros, and she makes the point of saying she needs over 1,000 ships. I think that was a very important point. Hopefully she doesn't take Euron up on his offer. I hope she doesn't. I really hope she doesn't. But back to the point at hand. After she has this little conversation with Dario, he says he doesn't see her sitting on an Iron Throne and just ruling. He sees her as a conqueror. And shortly after this, Daenerys senses something and she kind of just takes off. And Dario is like, where'd she go? And he then decides to go after her. But she comes back shortly after on Drogon. It is an incredible scene. She presents Drogon to her new Khalasar, and they are just blown away by this dragon that they have only heard of. She makes this huge grand speech, and she asks them if they will follow her across the narrow sea to Westeros to take back her throne to fulfill Khal Drogo's promise. I love that in this scene, she repeated a lot of what he promised to her new Khalasar, and they all very quickly agreed, and it was just an amazing scene. I mean, she is a dragon. I couldn't really see them saying no anyways. I don't think they would have said no anyways. I really don't. We are only a little over the halfway point for this season, and every single episode has had a wow moment. I don't know what to expect next. I know what I want next, but I'm pretty sure they're gonna make us wait until the season finale for the big reveal. If you enjoyed this, please remember to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye, guys.